Irashaimase. Tadaima. Konnichiwa. Not sure how to start these videos, but here we are. I have been watching Big Brother, trying to test my ability to keep track of stuff that doesn't matter. And I have these things going, and that's not what I'm looking for. I am looking for this. This is the transcript of a recording I made while I was talking to my mother. She knew I was recording, and she knew I was recording with the intentions of sharing on YouTube, because I have to figure out what to do to reconnect with my children who have been estranged from me. There are a number of people online who are communicating about estrangements, and I don't really feel like most of them are going through the same thing I've done. The the thing that my mom finally was able to say, and I appreciate that she was able to say it, is that she believes that my words hurt more than the violence that my kids were experiencing from their uncles. Specifying only two of them, two uncles, three kids, and this conversation starts with, uh, I asked her if she understood why I was terrified, and she says something to the effect of that I'm terrified because I might say the wrong thing and tick someone off and potentially get put back in jail. And I said, right? And I said, you're the someone. Wait, I think I have the gist of it right, but the details wrong. I think she said right, and I said, no, you're the someone. And then she said, I'm the someone, and I said, you're the someone. Because when I spoke to, I've talked, Shelley Ashenbrenner is the one who defended me against my brother Bob. And I'm assuming that if you're listening to me, you are not listening to me with the intentions of entrapping me into saying something, or entrapment. It's not really entrapment. I am not here to defame Bob. I'm not here to slander Bob. I'm not here to talk ill of Bob. I am here because I need help figuring out what to do about Bob. And it's kind of crazy how often you see the name Bob out there. And I'm not gonna. I don't think I should have to call him Voldemort. My understanding is that the people I was going to be in trouble for talking to about him aren't talking to him anyways. So I don't have to be scared of that at all, which is kind of an interesting twist. I hadn't seen that coming. I am not scared that anybody telling the truth is going to put me in jail. I am terrified because I was put in jail for things that weren't true. I was civilly disobedient one time, and when I went to jail, I kind of assumed it would be boring and intense and whatever, but I wasn't terrified of going to jail. In fact, I sent the email that I sent knowing that I was likely going to be arrested, but in doing so, I knew I was memorializing his crime, and well, I did. So it is now on the record forever that that this thing happened in Marion County, and I was civilly disobedient in Washington County, and Washington County has done an incredibly good job of helping me feel safe in a world where talking to Salem police was not making me safe. I'm not saying, let's see, that's the world we live in. The world we lived in is if my mom were talking, I if I were trying to badmouth Bob to my mom, he could then use that to say I'm trying to change their relationship for the negative. So me telling the truth to my mom about Bob would have put me in jail because Bob um, got a judge who accepted my signature to put my kids, the two diabetics anyways, into foster care. I gave her that signature. I asked them to protect my children from their uncles, and then um, a bunch of stuff that makes the state of Oregon culpable happened, and that's not the purpose of this conversation. But um, the judge who I trusted with my children, who took my signature and agreed to protect my children from my two brothers, that same judge signed an order saying that I don't get to talk about it. And that's where we have been at for years with no way for me to know how to get around it. And in fact, when I had inquired before Trump tanked the economy, um, when I had inquired into, uh, when I looked into a lawyer to help me deal with this order, I was retaliated against. My sister, that's 2 birthdays now, that she has spent asking my mother to hurt me for her birthday present. Two two birthdays. Like, I'm turning 50. That makes her, I think, 44. So that's in 44 years ish. Uh, she has had 2 birthdays where the present that she asked for was for my mother to do something to hurt me. Um, anyways, moving on. Reputation. She says something about how I'm hurting people's reputation. Well, I was, I am, I am the victim of the defamation. I am the victim of the slander. I am the one who told the truth about violence and was retaliated against for reporting that violence. And I am trying to wrap my head around the reality that my mom believes that my words did more damage than the violence that Bob and Alex committed against my sons. Now, I am trying to. The violence is over. The kids are adults. I'm an adult. I was. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to get along and navigate in this world that is not one that feels familiar to me. And I'm trying to do that recovering from a brain injury and some serious trauma. I've had 3 brain injuries from, uh, well, I fell off a bus and knocked myself out. I fell in jail. They withheld my breathing medication, and I passed out while I was trying to walk, and I fell, and I ended up with a brain injury. And then there's the brain injury I had because of being hypoxic for so long. I was in the ICU, not for a mental illness like Bob told everybody. I was in the ICU for a physical illness, and they gave me a lot of a lot of steroids, and it made me well enough that then I was made homeless just soon after being in the ICU because while I was in the hospital, addressed the violence that my children were experiencing. Um, that means that, I mean, I can, say the police did the wrong thing, for example. So, um, this is 2025, and it used to be true that we had our First Amendment rights to tell the truth about ourselves. And I recognize that um, we are not living in the same world that we were living in 2016 when I was in the ICU. So I I have been a spectator of my own life for way too long, and I got to live from 1975 until 2016, mostly doing exactly what I wanted to do. And in 2016, I needed surgery, and I eventually got the surgery, and the pain that I had for a long time went away because of that surgery. Um, my brother's Bob's opiate addiction affected my safety. I was his best friend when he figured out that I had opiates, and I shared one pill with him. And then I said I was going off of them because I didn't want to be a source of, um, I didn't want to feed into a habit. It didn't make me feel like a good person to be feeding that habit. And my grandpa had died, and my dad had died, and their opiates went to my brother, and I think my dad would still be alive, except that he shared opiates with his son instead of getting the medical care that he needed, and that's not something we can do anything about now. That was 2014 when the VA did their stint. Um, so, anyways, here in the first 30 seconds in, she is saying something about me hurting other people's reputation. Um, I have spent a lot of time. I mean, we're looking at dang well near a decade now of my reputation being slandered and defamed, and I've had the FBI out to my home looking for anthrax. It has been batshit crazy, trying to defend myself, because how do you even defend yourself against anthrax? I mean, like, why, if I were going to send somebody anthrax, why would I put it on my letterhead with my PSU information in an envelope that I didn't even bother to seal? Um, so there's a lot of misinformation going around, and I am fortunate that my mother was comfortable enough talking to me, because I am able to address some of that misinformation. For example, um, it was brought to my attention that I was supposed to be sending cards. Well, when you sent somebody a card and they sent the FBI after you, calling it, saying that there was anthrax with it, um, I technically didn't send a card. I sent letterhead in a letter envelope. But my point's the same. When you sent the FBI after me for what didn't get put into an envelope, there was no anthrax in the envelope. There's nothing added to the envelope. I didn't even put. I joked later that I should have at least put some baby powder in it if I known that they were going to accuse me of something like that. But there was nothing in the envelope. My mom says I might have sent glitter, and maybe I don't even remember sending glitter. What I do remember is I had several envelopes, and his was the only one that I didn't seal. And I did that because if they wanted to look in it to make sure that it was okay, there was nothing in it for them to find. So they could open the, you know how you can put the flap underneath the envelope? I don't know how it is. Keep in mind, I am recovering from brain damage here. So I put the flap inside of the envelope, so that you could easily pull out what was inside and make sure that it wasn't, something weird or a promotion or whatever. It was just a note from his sister, And um, I I didn't live after having the FBI out because of that anthrax accusation. I didn't have the confidence to send another letter to anywhere because, oh my goodness, like it was not. I was not only guilty of the things that I was doing, I was guilty of things that people were making up that I was doing. So I need to be able to address some of those conversations, and I'm doing. I'm just trying to get the get started today. I'm not trying to. You can't build Rome in a day, so they say. And so this is only 30 seconds in, and the reputation comment is it's kind of weird to me because uh, how does anybody think that what they suffered reputation wise even compares at any level to what I suffered? It's baffling to me. The other thing she said, and I think I said this already. Again, I have that disorganized thinking that comes with brain injuries. She said, my mom said that the violence was less bad than my words. Now, Mr. Rogers said if it's mentionable, it's manageable. And maybe Mr. Rogers was wrong and I shouldn't have been mentioning these things. However, when there's a brick wall between you and your kids, how is it that how is it possibly expected of me that I'm not going to ooze with love for them? And I mean, I remember them every morning before I open my eyes. So how is it possible that they thought I would just disappear forever and I'd be completely okay with losing my reputation and losing my everything because to hide some violence that embarrassed my family? The violence, it was real. It really did happen. It really was terrible. It really did involve. I reported it first to McKay. I reported it to our certifier. I reported it to the Salem police. They called it mutual combat when a 30-year-old was beating my minor son. And I reported it to at least two people at DHS who got fired for standing up for me because I told them that, well, they got fired for witnessing the violence and refusing to change what they were going to say. And I wish I kept their information, but one of them's name was Heather, but whatever. Um, it's not important anymore that how bad my son was hurting. It's not important anymore how badly the police department responded. Um, my brother Alex was accustomed to bar brawls, and I, when he was going through a hard time, um, I told him to move in with us. He had been rejected by the psych hospital, and um, he was willing to do what it takes to figure things out. He was going to a shrink. He he used THC to keep his under medical guidance. I think is the best way to put that. And um, I well. How do I know that he was capable of stopping the violence? Because once somebody told him to stop, he stopped. When he was told you can't get paid unless you are going to, you can't beat your foster kids, then he quit hurting my kids. And he doesn't think that, I am quite confident that he doesn't think that he hurt them as bad as I, the mother, think that he hurt them. And Jessica, my sister, she completely thinks it was ridiculous that I would be upset at Alex because obviously their dad had hit them before, and that's just not true either. So my family has defamed their dad, they defamed me, and they created a truth that wasn't true. And I don't know how to orient myself around uh, being sorry for reporting violence when I certified that business with four generations of us to make sure that my dad's choice of violence and my grandfather's choice of violence wasn't imposed on the generation of my kids. And I failed at that. So um, whatever happens now, I mean, obviously I didn't get my way. I've been estranged from my kids for since 2016, and every attempt I make to talk to them is rebutted by because my words are apparently so much worse than the violence that they endured. And forgiving the violence is one thing, but expecting me to lie about it, or or I mean, it feels like I'm being it's being people want me to say thank you. I'm expected to say thank you for hurting my children enough that I had to leave. And my mom talks a bunch about how I was a good mother until I couldn't. But that was a medical problem, and you can't hate away a medical problem. I had to have surgery that fixed the pain that I had in 2016. Um, I didn't have them looking at my medical records and thinking about, for example, the ocular myasthenia gravis becoming systemic myasthenia gravis, because they were so caught up on it's a mental illness, because Bob kept telling everybody I had a mental illness. There is no such thing as a parent of a type 1 diabetic who doesn't have at least a little bit of anxiety. But even that wasn't a problem. The problem was that I didn't have a support system that cared enough about the diabetes to help manage the diabetes so that I could have surgery. And I did file a restraining order against Alex for cause. And when it came up to be renewed, I chose not to refresh it because I'd had the surgery, and I assumed that life would now just go on. As it turns out, that was not what happened. Instead, I became the target. And I don't want to exaggerate things. I don't think it doesn't take much to push down somebody who has an inner ear problem and a breathing problem. It doesn't take much violence to do. I'm not saying that he punched me with fists. I am not willing to talk about the details of it because I don't really want to remember the details of it. But I ended up on the floor a few times. There's no reason that you should be navigating in somebody else's home in a manner that causes them to fall onto the floor. I hear about why didn't I spend $100 on a washer and a dryer? Well, I already gave my mother two washers and two dryers, so why would I why would I purchase them? We put them in her home because she needed them more badly than I did. And we were next door to each other, and we were working together. So the stories over time have evolved, and I don't expect that the details are ever going to come back um, and be important again. But my washer and dryer that I had that were working fine, that came from my previous residence, were put into my mother's home because that's where the child care was. And so it seems silly for me to have her ask, well, why didn't I spend money and buy another washer and dryer? Well, because I gave her the washer and dryer. We had the help over there, and I had worked that job, working that business for 20 years at the certified level, my lifetime. So since like 1981, if you want to look at how long I've really been working on that business, um, I was parentified because when you have a single parent and you have kids, and one of them, you know, I with Jessica, I with Jessica, I pointed out to her when she was watching 19 Kids and Counting how unfair that was to the older kids, because the older kids aren't getting a chance to do what they would do as children because they are little parents to the others. And I don't think my sister has the maturity to understand how true that is. And I'm pleased that she's doing great, but at the same time, how great can she be doing if it's dependent on hurting me? When you when you're doing great because you're hurting somebody else, I I have a hard time understanding that mentality. Now, I understand that not everything I say is going to sound kind. Some of that is because I've been terrified to talk to my kids for 8.5 years. So it's going to take a little while until I'm able to talk with ease about stuff um, that happened a long time ago. Um, I am in the process of transitioning from what used to be to what's going to be, and I don't know what's going to be yet. I don't know what's going to be happening, but I do know that I am a human and I am worthy of love. I am not ashamed of reporting what I was required by law to report. And I understand that my mother was more scared that her sons would go to jail than she was at putting me out like a stray cat, because she it I've been to jail now. So I mean, I've only been there once. Um and heck, they didn't give me my medicine, and I ended up with a brain injury. How did you know I had a brain injury? Because I couldn't hold my urine for like weeks after coming home. And nobody bailed me out. I went to jail and waited until I talked to a lawyer, and then the lawyer, within within I think an hour of the lawyer talking to me, she had me out of there. I had already fallen at that point. I had bruises all over me, and um, I have no real complaints about the jail, except that the medical team in the jail are not the same people that run the jail. And so in my forensic interviews, I even explained how uh, how it is that people like me are dying in those jails, because um, well, I'll talk about that another day. I'm usually a little rambly. I've been talking for 28 minutes. That's a long time, but I am trying to get used to talking to this stinking microphone. I am trying to get used to um, the idea of talking in a public way, because what happened to me should never have to happen to anybody else. And my mom is not a bad guy. She was, I would say, she was just as much a victim here at, maybe not quite. She did cover up here's the distinction between us. When I had to report something by law that my son had done that I found to be horrendous and humiliating and whatever, I reported it anyway. And when she had to report something her sons did, she didn't. So I come from a generation that wants to talk about it. She came from a generation where you hid it. And I'm not trying to even qualify one as better than the other. I am trying to say that I, it that's the system. Those were the rules that we were living by at the time. I would argue that since Trump's first administration, we've kind of been at a world war. I've called it World War Term Putin. Um, and I see Trump is now a lame duck, and as a lame duck, he's gonna make some loud squawking, but we're gonna get past this, and I'm, I'm past it, waiting for everybody else to catch up, and I'm going to be talking, and I have a playful game in mind with my partner here, as to who can monetize their who can who can earn more money quicker. I'm not sure how to earn money yet. Um, as entrepreneurs are told to do, the way you figure out how to make a business work, is you ask around and say, hey, how can I help you? So I'm going to be talking to a lot of people, and some of those people are going to be recorded, and some people aren't. I have no teeth, which makes it a little bit weird. But when I am doing well enough to um, plan ahead instead of feel like I'm uh, um, treading water, when I finally make ground, I think I'm mixing my metaphors a bit much here, but when I finally get my feet underneath me and feel like I'm making some traction, I'm competing with my partner to see what who can out earn the other. Now he's got some serious advantageous education behind his belt. He's a senior software engineer who knows stuff that I just can't even pretend to understand. At least he spent those 20 years that I spent raising Bob's kids and my kids, and being available for Jessica and Alex. He spent all those years programming, and as such, he is much more skilled in that department. But the world's kind of been a little bit stupefied, um, and I'm not sure. We're hoping to become a team, a rating team, and use our GDKP experience and World of Warcraft as a model to um, make ourselves useful to the community, and figure out what to do with ourselves in this post MAGA world. Um, I am not a Republican, nor am I a Democrat. I am registered in Oregon as NAV, and um, I think we'll call that a day. And I'll post this up there, and do it again tomorrow. Itakimasu.